Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Stripped by Sia, your podcast for strippers, sex workers, and all the fancy naked people in between. I'm your host, Steph Sia, aka Sia on camera, online, or Kimchi on stage. I don't know if I have any more bookings in person anymore, but if I do, you might hear it here first. If you want to come tip me in person, if not, you can find me online on various platforms like Sex Panther, OnlyFans, etc. And Streaming. That's where I'm usually most active. But yes, I myself am a sex worker, have been in the industry for over a decade, starting off as a sugar baby back in my humble beginnings. Have learned a lot since then and started the show about 5 years ago to really help destigmatize the industry. I do that by bringing all my friends on and people I want to become friends with, but also like people in the industry that I admire and look up to, and also, bringing on these experts onto the show because they really are experts. And today is no different. We are bringing on a special guest today. We are talking to Violet Voss today, who we will be speaking about, the balancing act when it comes to in-person work, online work, professional, personal, fans, and seeing the real you, or how much of the real you do you give? All of these questions, which is so apparent in our industry because we have to be on all the time, and that can be very exhausting. And in some situations can also be unsafe. So we definitely want to be talking about all of those issues and challenges today in this week's episode. But before we get into the meat and bones of the episode, I just want to double check and say hello to all of the lovely Patreon subscribers. Hello, you guys get a fan recognition shout out if you are on the top tier of my Patreon. If you don't know what Patreon is, it's a way to help support creators like myself who have podcasts. Because a lot of you are like, you are providing so many great resources out there in the world for free. How can I help you? Where can I donate money to? So that question was coming up a lot. So I started a Patreon a couple of years ago, so you guys can subscribe that way. And from there, you can get access to all the lovely bonus episodes. I will be publishing one at the time of release now with my guest lecture at Simon Fraser University that happened last week. That is happening. You also have all the video exclusive access to all the video content, full uncut access there, which is always a lot of fun. Not just the little teeny tiny 1 minute clips you see on social media. That, and you also kind of see who I'm bringing onto the show, some topics I'm trying to tackle and find and source guests for. So a lot of really cool behind the scenes stuff if you're into that. And if you're wondering where exactly your money is going, it's all just going to funding my website and then the occasional adult events that I might attend, usually AVNs or expos, is usually where your money goes for that stuff. So if you're interested, feel free to check it out. It's patreon.com/stripped by Sia with tiers starting at as low as $4 a month. All right, so we're done with that, which is really nice because I cannot wait to chat with Violet over the next hour and a bit. If you're unaware or unfamiliar with who Violet Voss is, she is an in-person and an online pro dominatrix. She's also a glamour model, which we'll definitely talk about her humble roots and how that all started and how that got her into the industry. She has graced the covers of Playboy twice, as well as FHM. She was also the creator of the month on Loyal Fans earlier this year. And she's appeared at FetishCon. She's a clip artist. She does a lot of things. She has so many projects under her belt, which we'll definitely talk about that. There's a lot of things you guys want to be keeping your eye on. So, Violet, did I cover a lot of it? I know there's probably so much more I didn't even say, but...
No, you covered it perfectly.
Well, you've accomplished a lot, and I'm so excited for everyone to get to know you and also for myself to get to know you. But I want to throw it back to you, just in case I missed anything. But I don't know, like creators and people, like we have different ways of describing ourselves. So I love to throw the ball back in your court and introduce yourself to the audience in your own way.
Sure. Hi, I am Violet Voss. I am a professional glamour and fetish model, and I'm also a professional online and in real life dominatrix and fetish clip artist.
Perfectly said. Well said. I feel Violet. We should probably start at the very beginning in terms of like, everyone's always curious to hear. I want to know what the story is, and some people's stories are just like it's actually really boring. But I would love to hear your story. Everyone has their own unique story about how they got in the industry, so feel free to go right ahead.
Of course. My story begins around the time I was 16. I started modeling and I had a fashion blog at the time. I was really into that. And that transitioned to me wanting to go to college in New York City. And so when I was 18, I moved to New York City. And I quickly realized that it was very expensive to live there, but simultaneously, I was checking out the dating scene and on all the dating apps. And I just realized, like, that was not the vibe for me. So one of my friends in like the clubbing world, which I also got into there, was telling me about sugaring and sugar dating.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, I guess I will check it out and figure out what it's all about. So I had started sugaring in New York City. I did that for about 8 months and I really enjoyed it. It made way more sense to me to sugar than to just normal date because I really wasn't looking for a long term relationship anyway. But I did want to be around people that, were more successful and had the things that I wanted in life. So we'll fast forward. I moved back to Dallas about a year, being in New York City. And then I started modeling again, just as a hobby. I still had my vanilla career from 9 to 5 every day. So I would model on the weekends. And it was a lot of like fashion modeling, and so I kind of let that die down for, I would say, probably 2 years while I focused on my vanilla career. And then kind of things shifted. I just realized I really wasn't happy with it. I was in the real estate profession, if anyone is wondering.
Mm.
It just wasn't for me. And I was with my now husband. He was my boyfriend at the time, and he was a glamour photographer. And, we kind of had discussions, and I spoke with other industry professionals, and I realized I could actually model full time and make it my full time career. It never really
Mm-hmm.
dawned on me before then. And so I think I was around 22 at this point that I made the decision to transition from real estate to full time modeling. And so I started out with glamour modeling. And being an independent model, I had a lot of opportunities to do fetish and, you know, porn work. So I started doing a lot of fetish modeling, bondage in particular, and I did some solo porn scenes with some really smaller producers. Um, and then that just kept going. My trajectory kind of started going up. I was doing traveling modeling, doing all of this. And then it kind of turned into going to conventions. And so my first convention was FetishCon. And this was,
Mm-hmm.
let's see, FetishCon 2023, actually. So it was just
Oh,
last
okay.
year. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I kind of had this moment, this epiphany, that I really wanted to start creating my own fetish content and particularly female domination content, because at this time I'd worked with a few female domination producers and I really like had so much fun and got a lot of enjoyment out of it. So I made the decision to start creating my own female domination clips. And at that time I started my production company, which is I Need Violet, .com, or just I Need Violet. And I started creating all these clips, and then sooner or later, a lot of people started requesting in person sessions, which is not really something I had thought about at that time. But I was like, you know what? I will give it a try because I'm open to trying a lot of these things once to see if it fits my
Sure.
lifestyle and profession. And it
Yeah.
did. So that escalated, and now here I am today, about a year later from all of that, doing in person domination, virtual domination, creating the fetish clips, and I am still modeling. I don't model as much anymore. Fortunately, my dominatrix profession just took off after I started
Yeah.
putting myself out there. So yeah.
Wow, that's an amazing trajectory. It sounds like, okay, I'm just gonna dip my toes in here. We're gonna see how this feels. We're gonna see if I like it. And then you're like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna just like, keep working on riding this wave, which you have been. First of all, congratulations on all of your success. And it's
Thank
just so
you.
inspiring to hear stories like this. And I hope, others listening at home are also inspired as well. I want to like go back a little bit too because I have a few questions with a whole
Yes.
career and everything.
It's a long story. There's a lot of spots.
Of course, yeah, we're gonna go on a few tangents right now for sure. I mean, like, so initially you were, yeah, we all have, I mean, I'm just generalizing, but a lot of us have had 9 to 5s. Some of us are still doing 9 to 5s and moonlighting in our career with sex work. But when you were doing and kind of trying to balance real estate and modeling and stuff too, do you remember and like if you had a pivotal moment and like what that moment was in terms of like, I'm not into this anymore. And
I don't know why, like growing up, I thought that I really wanted to do real estate, so I gave it a shot. But me as an early adult, trying to be a salesperson and trying to sell people homes and apartments, condos, whatever, over time I started realizing like I really just did not like selling things. I hate like it's like when you go to a mall and you're just trying to shop at like Neiman Marcus, let's say, and like the salesperson will not leave you alone. I felt like
yes.
that was me and I was like this is not what I really want for my life because I hate that feeling. So I started having those feelings and I was with a company at the time that was having some issues. So they had like this massive layoff, and I was a part of it. And so at that point, like already having these like feelings festering up, me kind of having this like animosity towards what I was doing, that was my biggest pivotal moment as do I really want to continue this and try to go be with another company, or do I want to pivot into something that I would really enjoy doing as a career? And that was my moment of really figuring out that the vanilla world was not for me in the professional sense.
That's okay. And a lot of us do have that realization at some point. We're just like, it's
Hate working
not
with
really
other
working out.
people. Yeah, no, it
Yeah.
was not good.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I mean, you pivoted and you pivoted hard. You went into glamour modeling a bit heavier at that point. And also, you mentioned that you had your boyfriend at the time, which is now your husband, was a glamour photographer. Can we ask, like, how did you meet as a model and he was a photographer? Or
No,
how did that go?
that's actually a good question. We actually, that's something I left out of the story is when I moved back to Dallas, I was started to do sugaring again, like sugar dating, just because, again, I enjoyed it a lot. And we actually met through one of the sugaring sites.
Oh
And
my
I
gosh.
had just happened to find out like it was his hobby to do glamour photography, just as it was my hobby to do modeling. And so, yeah, that's how we met.
Oh my gosh. Oh wow. That's so exciting because like I mean, I did a few years on Seeking Arrangement. I was
Yeah, that's where
sugaring for
we
a
met.
yeah, that's so crazy because like I have no idea how that site is now, but
I don't
like
know. Yeah, I
it
know.
was
I haven't heard great things, but I'm not
no, no.
particularly sure.
Yeah, I mean, like meeting that kind of context, and we don't have to, you don't have to answer the questions if you're not comfortable. I probably should have said earlier, like if you don't want to go in anywhere, like we don't have to go into it. But like that, trying to find that boundary in terms of like, are we going to keep this as work or like taking a chance on this person that would be a client? Like, what is your take on that, or like what made him stand out?
Sure. Yeah, no, because I can speak for myself in saying like I was not really interested in finding a relationship at that point. I had just gotten out of a longer term relationship, and so I was just kind of going out for fun. And but we kind of had a consistent schedule of going out on dates, and so over time I just found myself like really enjoying his company and liking him. And then it just kind of grew very naturally. Um, Neither of us really were ever of the mindset that we were looking for a long-term partner, but that's just kind of how it ended up being. Is we realized we really enjoyed each other and liked each other. And that's how it just kind of grew.
That's such a beautiful story. I love hearing stories like this because
Aw.
my husband is also a client of
Yeah.
mine too.
Love it. No, I love it.
Yeah, and like it's really interesting because like I did have and I do still have very firm boundaries when it comes to clients. But then I don't know what it was, but there was something about like him and it felt safe and like he didn't seem crazy and
Yeah.
stuff and
I know. Yeah, you gotta weed out the crazies for sure.
yeah. For everyone listening, it's a needle in a haystack.
Yeah, it really is. I would never go in with the intention of trying to find something long term in a situation like that, but that's just me.
Absolutely. But yeah, I know it's great that you mentioned that, Violet, because like I feel like a lot of people, and especially with sugaring, and like I haven't ever done an episode of sugaring because I have so many opinions on it.
Right.
But like I just feel like there's a lot of people, unfortunately, that go into seeking arrangement or any kind of like Ashley Madison website thinking that they're just gonna strike it rich and they're just gonna get married to some old rich dude and stuff. But I feel like that is not a realistic approach. Sure, it does happen in certain circumstances, but like I feel people listening need to know that like you should not go in with that expectation. What are
No,
your thoughts on that?
never. Yeah, I would never
Yeah.
suggest that because, like you said, it's like a needle in a haystack thing. You don't want to go into, especially if you're doing it as more of a profession type of a thing, and expect that you're going to find a long term partner because then you might just be let down and it just won't end well.
Yeah. You definitely muddy the waters for sure. But I mean,
Yeah.
going back to you and going back to your story. Sorry, all the side tangents, but I love these topics. They're
No,
all related. I mean, now pivoting to 2024, yes, you guys are married. He is your photographer and business partner. I'd love to know like what that working dynamic looks like in a professional context, and also to compare contrast that. How do you separate the business part with your personal lives?
yeah, so he does help me run my business in the sense of I'm just not like really into the business side of things, like accounting and certain administrative tasks. So he really helps me with that and like business planning. I really accredit his helps really helping me have a fast trajectory in this business because he comes from a business background. Um, but yeah, I'm definitely more on the creative side. So we were able to establish our roles in my professional life pretty quickly on because we knew that I'm the creative one and he's going to be more on the back end doing business stuff. It can be challenging for sure establishing a balance between, your professional lives when you're working together and your personal lives. And I would say my number one thing that has really helped us is communication. And I think just even in a relationship aspect, whether it's intimate or not, communication can just really help you have these boundaries and it opens up so many lines of communication. That way, nobody's feelings get hurt or emotions don't get in the way. So, yeah, that's probably my biggest tip that has really helped us be able to set that boundary between professional and personal life.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think that's really great because, like, right off the bat, you guys already have your designated roles. Like, okay, he's gonna take care of all the boring
Yeah.
stuff you don't want to do, and then you could just focus on the creation aspect, which is honestly, in my opinion, a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's all the fun for me.
Yeah, I think that that's like having those clearly defined roles really helps you both kind of stay on track and keep in this kind of like business mindset. Because a lot of people say, "Oh, you should never go into business with your partner," or like don't muddy those kind of waters. I mean, do you have a take on that at all? Like, what's your opinion? Obviously, you're in it right now, so it's working for you. But
Right.
I'd love to hear your opinion on that.
It can be, yeah, it could certainly be challenging. I think just given our background meeting in the sugaring scene, and he has a career outside of this. So, there was already this kind of like fine line as to what he was willing to help me with and what he wasn't, in terms of my business. But coming from, we were already together before I really dove headfirst into the adult industry. And I would say that is what really helped us get to this point. I could only imagine how challenging it would be, like trying to work with a partner that you met after already being in this industry, especially if they don't understand all the aspects of it, and that at the end of the day it is just a job for a lot of us, even though we can have lots of fun with it and all of that. But yeah, that I hope that answers that question a little
Oh,
bit more.
Oh, absolutely. It's a perfect answer for sure. I mean, like, how, and this is another question that, a lot of people have too, when you are with a partner and you are thinking about getting into sex work, how do you approach that conversation with your partner, especially if they're not in the industry at all, if they're doing a vanilla thing and stuff? But how do you approach a conversation like that? How do you navigate that?
Right. I think it really boils down to just being as honest and transparent as you can. Like I said, communication just goes so far. And so you've got to have those open lines of communication. And even though that would be a very tough conversation to have, you have to express, yourself and express these feelings and interests that you have and maybe getting into sex work. Because at the end of the day, let's say you push those deep down and you don't ever end up having those conversations, you're going to end up, maybe having some animosity towards yourself and even your partner if you didn't communicate to them. So even though it's going to be tough and hard to have these conversations, I think you just really have to focus on transparency and just being your authentic self and letting them know that that's what you want to do.
Yeah, yeah. I can't stress that enough. Like I absolutely agree with you on that because you really need to just be open and honest about what it is that you want in this career, where you want to go with this because if you don't have that, it's going to create some problems down the road. And it's not even just talking about this career, but this is just like
In
relationship advice
general.
in general.
Yeah, I know.
Totally.
Oh my god, yeah, literally.
I mean, I'm curious to hear like when you decided to start to offer in-person sessions because obviously you've done a lot of virtual work, online work with your dominatrix career. How did you approach like, hey, I'm thinking about actually offering some in-person sessions? How did you bring that into conversation? How did he receive it?
Right. Yeah, so I remember like telling him, backtrack just a little bit to give you more like of the general story, like that I was going to start doing fetish clips and start doing female domination. And he was a little hesitant at first. I don't know if he thought like it was going to be something long term that I could really do, but he did end up supporting me. Obviously, we're here, but I think just on a business sense, he may have been a little hesitant there. So we did that. Then he started realizing it was really working. I was getting so many new people and fans and clients coming in and just making a lot of money doing it. So then we started getting the emails for the sessions and like, it was like, look, this is what I'm getting approached with. Let's have a conversation about it. One, I was like, are we as a couple or you as a person like comfortable with me potentially doing this? And two, is it something that I even want to do because there's so many potential like safety and even health concerns that just kind of kept like coming up in my mind. So just had a lot of conversations about it, and he's like, you know what, let's, if you want to try it out, let's try, like that's the best that you can do. We definitely established boundaries. I had no interest in having any like sexual intercourse with my clients. I know some professional dominatrixes do and some don't. That was never an interest to me, so we definitely established quite a, the boundaries there. And I think that's really important as well as, sticking to them, especially in a marriage or partnership. So yeah, I ended up dipping my toes in the water. My boundaries are set. All of my clients know that. There is no like really miscommunication on it. I make it known from the start of all of my conversations with potential clients. Like, these are the services I offer. I do not waver. I'm not doing X, Y, or Z. And so I think just establishing those boundaries with your partner and then establishing them with your clients can really help you safeguard so many things in your relationship, but also, with your clients. That way you're not showing up and getting something, having a client there that
Yeah.
expects one thing and you're not providing that, etc.
Totally. Yeah, and that does unfortunately happen. I mean, I'd love to shift the conversation into, the contrast
Mhm.
between the in-person work and also the online work. I mean, if you are a new dom looking to get started, how did you approach that, and like, how did you make sure that there was going to be a safe place for yourself, for the client? I think it's such a deserving conversation that needs to be had.
Oh, for sure. One, you need to make sure that you, as a dominatrix and professional, are 100% comfortable with the decision you're making. And once you are, that's when you can really step into it. If you're not, I would say you need to do a little bit more digging inside to make sure that this is really something you want to do because it's not for everyone. But safety, yeah, is huge to me. I like to make sure I'm safe. My clients are in a safe space when they come to me. And so when we dive into safety, I think my biggest tip and thing that I do is I make sure like I weed out anyone that could possibly make me uncomfortable, any time wasters, any predators through my initial interactions with them before I even book them for a session. All of this I do through email, and I actually use Proton Mail, which I would recommend for anyone in this industry to have an encrypted email provider. That is a way to safeguard your conversations online and through email and communication. So, yeah, I do that by, basically when a client contacts me and I ask them the services they're interested in, I kind of see like their initial, messages to me to see how they're approaching me as a dominatrix. I look for, you're respectful, timely. I always require an initial tribute before we really dive into a conversation about the session. And so if they're doing all these things that I require and that I ask of very easily, then that's a positive to me. If they're not and they're being sassy, bratty, anything like that, that's a red flag, and generally I won't take the conversations any further than that. So I'd say you can really help safeguard yourself by just looking at those initial conversations and feeling those out. But once we're in a good space there, I always require a form of identification just for my own records. And well, I don't personally background check. I do my own due diligence and research if need be. I do know that a lot of pros do the background search with the ID, and I think that that's totally valid if that makes you way more comfortable. And there's a lot of great services that are pretty affordable out there for that. But yeah, that's kind of like the step, and then we book the session. I have them submit a deposit and everything like that. And then once they show up, I have always had a ring camera, and I make sure that they ring it. That way, it captures their face in the event anything did happen. I've got footage of that. And those things alone, I have never had a bad experience, knock on
Knock
wood.
on wood.
Discussion with hundreds of people now. And
Mhm.
so that seems to be work really well for me.
Yeah, those are all I would say required for sure. Of course, if you can afford some of the stuff, some of the stuff does have a cost, but like if you're
Mhm.
able to, I mean, it's your safety. I feel like if you
Right.
have the means to do it, then it's a good investment for sure.
Hmm.
Drawing back to your first experience in person as a dom, were you ever nervous at all? Like didn't know what to expect? Like
Honestly, and I still like feel this way. I have these conversations with some of my submissives all the time. Especially with someone new, I always have a little bit of like, I don't know if it's nervousness, sorry. Maybe a little bit of anxiety. I'm normally an anxious person anyway. So anytime I'm meeting someone new, there is a little bit of that. I think that's totally normal.
yeah.
Now, if you start having a full-on anxiety attack or something more is going on there, I think that that could be a red flag that your body is trying to tell you about. At least I know that my body reacts that way. Um, but yeah, my first ever session, I was pretty nervous, but I was kind of nervous in a good way. I was excited. But yeah, any new person or client that I get is always kind of like interesting, a little bit of exciting because you don't really know like who's walking through the door in that sense. Like obviously I get their identification and do the due diligence there, but like you don't know them as a person really until they're within your presence and at your, you know, disposal. So yeah, I think being nervous is okay. I think that's a
Oh, for
healthy
sure.
like thing to experience. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and going on the flip side, I mean, yes, clients being nervous, especially in the first session or any session sometimes, like that is such a natural thing on both sides for sure.
Hey everyone, it's Carly David. I'm the founder of PS Group. We're the creative marketing agency for sex workers by sex workers. We get it. Things are changing fast. Standing out in this industry is tougher than ever. But whether you need a killer website, eye-catching graphics, merch design, pro-level video editing, we got your back. Our fees are totally project-based too. We never work on percentages or commission. Visit us at sexworkmarketing.com, say hello, let's start a conversation, see how we can navigate these changes together.
I also want to talk about like, client safety as well and how important that is for you to exercise as a professional dominatrix. Because I don't know what it is, but like, there's a lot of baby doms that are out there and have complete disregard for their subs. I don't agree quite. I personally don't quite agree with all of that. Like, I don't know if that's just part of their persona and stuff. To me, it just seems like a little bit irresponsible. But I'd love to hear like your take on the importance of keeping your clients safe as well.
Right. I think at the end of the day, that should be one of our main priorities is, and I tell all of my clients this, your health and safety is my number one priority when you're here. And second to that is making sure that I provide the experience that you're coming to me for. For me, I think safety can mean so many things, but especially in person, a lot of these clients are in relationships, do have, careers and are successful. And so they want to make sure that one, their identity is not at risk and that would to ever come out. And so there does need to be reassurance there. But especially once they get there, for me, one thing that I always just try to reiterate is that you're in a safe space. It's a judgment free zone. You're here to explore your fetishes, and there is no judgment. I want you to feel safe and comfortable. So always make sure that anything that I can do, even if it's something small, like offering water or, toiletries or anything like that, just makes them more comfortable. It does help the session just go so smoothly. Also, like for me, I'm big in being sanitary. Health is
Mm-hmm.
so important to me, especially when we dive into sessioning. And I personally do a lot of pegging and anal work with my clients. It's a big request. So I make sure I've got sanitizer and all the great cleaning products, antibacterial soaps and cleaners to really make sure that everything is clean and sanitary every single time. I've got numerous sets of like sheets when we're doing on the bed. I want to make sure everything's clean and ready to go for my sessions. And so in person, that's kind of like my main focus. Safety virtually could be, a little bit different.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Totally. And a lot
Where
of
to
these,
start with that? It's a big
yeah,
conversation.
that's where you get really into. I think really the DOMs I know and aware of that do in person seem to be pretty spot on with being making sure they're providing a safe and healthy experience. It's really once you get into the virtual world that you start seeing the baby doms, as you said.
Yes.
I don't know if it's rage bait, if it's their persona, if it's reality. I have no idea. But you really need to make sure you do your own research, especially like safe play, discussing safe words, hard limits, all of these things need to go into a safe, comfortable experience and environment for your client.
Absolutely. I mean, like talking about online safety, which like sounds like a course that needs teaching in schools nowadays.
Yeah.
Um, talking about online safety, we were already kind of touching a little bit on the subject earlier. You talking about encryption, you starting off with Proton Mail, which is really great. But I mean, the online world is a little bit different than in real life,
Very.
too. Yes, and as a person that does like femdom and femdom, how how do you keep your identity safe? How do you keep things, separated between the public and the private? How do you find balance in all that stuff?
I love that. Yeah, that's a great question.
Mhm.
So there's numerous points that I could touch on. I'm going to try to touch on like the bigger points I think are most
Sure.
important.
We have time, Violet.
Oh,
We keep going. You're
I
good.
yeah, okay, awesome. Again, the encrypted email is key. You want to make sure when you are having conversations with potential clients that you are having it on through email, especially if you want to make sure your social media or fan sites are not at risk at getting banned because a lot of these platforms do have rules and regulations and policies in place that if they do see that you are communicating about in person work, you are at risk of getting your account banned. So make sure, yes, just get an encrypted email. Um, I think another point we'll talk about there is if you're like hosting a website like I do, where you're listing your services and whatnot, like we're in the United States, sex work and particularly in person, whether you're an escort, dominatrix, anything like that. It is in this gray area. Is it legal? Is it not legal? It's in between, honestly. It especially depends on the services that you are providing. And so, like, one thing that I have done is all of my website servers are outside of the United States. They are in Europe and countries where sex work, prostitution, anything like that is legal. I think that that is
Mm-hmm.
a really important point to bring up. I haven't heard a lot of people discuss it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, for
but
sure.
like that is one way to make sure that your websites are never taken down because they
Yeah.
would be against the
Privacy
law in the
law.
United States. And, you know, also if anything legally were to come up between you and a client or fan, if all of your servers are in Europe or wherever, there's really no suit or any legal action they could take against you in that regard. Um, let's see what else. I think another good thing I always, especially when I'm traveling, a VPN is great, especially using the sites that we're on. That helps like safeguard your information so much using a VPN when traveling. I can't stress that enough. Proton has a great VPN, but there's some great free ones or, you know, slightly inexpensive ones out there. And then what else? So what are we going over again?
I know there's so much.
I don't
Just
want to
talking
make
about like
all of
online safety,
yeah.
like protecting yourself,
Oh,
protecting
okay.
your
Here we go.
identity.
This is no. I here want to talk about this. So, personal and professional, you definitely want to make sure. Like, I've got my own personal social media sites. It helps me keep up with my close family and friends. And me personally, there are certain family members and friends that don't know what I do for a living, and I prefer to keep it that way. Um, so, one thing that I think is super important to stress is on your personal social medias. I would highly recommend they're private, just in the event fans find out. You don't really want them learning about your personal information, at least most people that I've communicated with in this industry. Um, so one thing that is great information is like anything that you post on your personal social medias. If you are trying to safeguard your personal identity, make sure you do not post that on your professional social media.
Yes.
Like I could take a
Yes.
selfie right now and post it on my professional Twitter, but I would not put that on your personal Twitter, Instagram, because that is a quick way for people they could search that image and find your personal accounts. And so making sure that the content is different, that there is no cross posting between your personal and professional social medias is key.
Is key. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
And
I
I think
love it.
if you're someone looking to get started in the industry, I highly recommend having a separate identity, creating a stage name. Can't stress that enough to really help you keep that
Yeah.
boundary and privacy between your personal and professional life. And if you're someone like me, like a model and findom, I receive gifts and packages and have to provide my information to producers and stuff like that. I always recommend having a PO box, or you can go to like the
Mm-hmm.
UPS store and open up a mailing box and having an address separate from your residential address to give to whomever, clients or producers, if you're not comfortable with them having your personal information.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, there's so many great tips here,
Yeah,
and there's
I'm
so
like
many like ones we haven't talked
the
about
memo.
too.
Yeah, no, I think those are my biggest tips when I talk to people about like safeguarding their identity because that is so important to me. It's something that I strive to do. Oh, one more thing since we're on
Of
it.
course,
I'm
keep going, please. Keep coming, Violet.
um, yes, I would highly, highly recommend if you are doing this and you're making money and this is like a long term thing for you, I would highly recommend opening up an LLC. Um,
Mm-hmm.
that has been pretty, you know, important for my business. And so when you do open up an LLC, people can search that information. I think one mistake I made and I wouldn't recommend is like using your stage name as the LLC name
Oh.
because one, it's easier for people to find you, but once you have your
Mm.
LLC, you can create, business checking accounts at banking institutions. And so, like, for me, mine is Violet Voss XO LLC. So, like, you could easily search that and see that I'm a sex worker. And so, that is one way, like, your banking institutions could flag your
Right.
accounts. So, I actually had to create a separate LLC just to safeguard that information. But I would just
Yeah.
recommend doing something very generic, like Sunny Time Consulting or something. But
Yeah.
banking
Something very
institution,
vague.
yeah, or client will never be able to find. Um,
Right. That's a good tip.
and yeah, if you do have an LLC, I would recommend either way to have a registered agent on it. I do on mine. That way, like, people will research it. Like, if you have a name similar to mine, and they
Hmm.
won't find out who my personal identity is the registered agent. It is someone else and a different party.
Gotcha. Very smart. I mean, we haven't talked about this too much on the show, but like, at what point, if you are a creator in this business, at what point do you think is a good time to open up an LLC?
That is a good question. It's gonna be probably different for everyone. At the point I decided to, I'd been a few months into modeling, and I was certain like that this was something that I was going to be doing long term. I started seeing consistent months income wise coming in, and so I would say, like, you don't have to start with an LLC. But I think, like, if you were doing it for a few months or maybe even a little bit longer than that, and you do see that you want to continue in this industry and continue to grow your brand, that it would be an important and wise investment to go ahead and open one.
Absolutely. Yeah. Maybe we should do an episode on this in the future. I think
Yeah,
it's
we
so
could go all
important.
into it.
So good. I mean, I feel like we gathered a lot of really, really, really great points there, Violet. Was there anything that you're missing? I feel like you have so much to
I
say.
know. I would say, like, we want to dive into, like, banking institutions as far as safety goes. It is very common that being in the sex work and adult industry, a lot of the times creators will get their bank accounts flagged and shut down because the institution, finds out the line of work you're doing, because it is pretty much prohibited at all the major institutions. And so that's where the LLC would really come into play. Um, is making sure that, again, if it's a generic name, that is ideal, because if it's like XYZ Consulting or whatever, the banking institution is probably unlikely to figure out that your cash apps or whatever
Right.
are coming from financial domination or sex work. And I think, in regards to the banking institutions, whether or not you do have an LLC or not, I think it's wise to have multiple accounts and bank with at least two different institutions, just to really
Hmm.
safeguard your
Yeah.
finances and money. Because, I've heard too many stories about people having their money all in one account, one institution, and then it's just
It's
gone.
gone.
So,
Yeah, I have also
yeah,
heard many of those stories. I mean, diversification when it comes to banking is really, really important. Diversification when it comes to adult platforms is also important as well. Like, just never putting all of your eggs in one basket
yeah, yeah.
is
That's,
sound advice.
yeah,
Yeah,
such a good piece of advice. Diversify for
for
sure.
sure. I mean, oh my God, I love everything that we're talking about right now. I mean, going back to kind of like the umbrella topic and comparing and contrasting in person work and online work, I mean, you would probably say they're very different.
They really are, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what kind of aspects, and this is just like a funny question, but like, what are your most favorite aspects with online work and with in person work?
Yeah, so online, like, one thing that I really enjoy and that a lot of people come to me for, is gooning, which, if you are unfamiliar with that term, a gooner is someone that is basically intense edging. It's prolonged edging without having an orgasm. And so the point of gooning is to kind of get to subspace and get to this trance-like mindset, where like you're overtaken with pleasure, like there are no thoughts in your head besides just to keep gooning, and it's really kind of like this mesmerizing, like it's a trance like state for subs to get into. And so really it's grown into a very popular fetish. So that's one thing that I sell a lot of and do with my clients is gooning and orgasm denial. And
Fun.
another, yeah, big thing that I do is financial domination online. I feel like it kind of goes hand in hand with gooning. A lot of times, like financial domination is not just something, it's not just the solo fetish I'm exploring with someone, it's just one of the fetishes that someone is into. And so if I know that a client is really into like gooning and financial domination, I can mix those two together and get like even more out of them and really give them like this wild experience. That's kind of where my online presence is. And then in person, I get a lot of in person requests for like pegging and anal play, and some people are into it through a like feminization aspect. They want that because they want to be feminized, and so if they want to be feminized, we do it in like this positive, holistic approach. Sometimes I will dress them up and do hair and makeup.
Fun.
That can kind of lead into sissification. I guess
Yes.
I prefer more like the term feminization. And yeah, I would say that by far beats anything else that I do in person. But I have seen a lot of my clients that come to me in person do also follow me online and watch a lot of my clips. So they do want to like normally experience like gooning a little bit, like tease and denial, orgasm denial. Most of them want to leave like denied and of that general mindset.
Fun. Oh,
Yeah.
it's so great to like, kind of like, have fun in all these different corners. And, that's what I love about the sex industry in general. It's just like we're able to play so much and explore and just like learn so many new things, and learn things that you might not have known before. And now you're like, okay, now this is like my favorite thing right now. It's so much fun. I mean, going back to, I guess, like, what else? I mean, talking about all of your accomplishments in your career, and like now it's 2024, you have so many cool things happening soon. Yeah, I mean, by the time this is out, I'm sure there will be some things that are out. So I feel like we should talk about some of your upcoming gigs, upcoming
Yeah.
collaborations. So many things we should talk about here.
Yes. So in August, I was in Las Vegas for a billboard shoot for loyal fans. Shout out, best fan site out there. But
Hells yeah, and congratulations. That's huge.
yeah, I will be on the billboard with four other amazing creators. And so that is going to be unveiled in late September. And I'm actually headed out there for the unveiling party on September 26th, excuse me. And so, yeah, definitely by the time this is out, the billboard will be up. And it's actually on the interstate going from LA to Las Vegas. So, if you travel that way, you'll definitely see me
Yeah.
on there.
That's so awesome.
Yes. While I'm out there, I'm actually pretty excited. I'm gonna have a shoot with a pretty big production house. This probably be the biggest production house that I've worked for, and I don't want to name drop yet because it hasn't
That's
happened.
okay. Yeah, it
But
hasn't
it
happened yet. So,
will, yeah, it's a major porn house, and I won't be doing like boy girl. It will be a like femdom type of a scene with another female, so that's exciting. Yes, and then I know. So my real life life-size sex doll in partnership with Iron Tech Dolls. Was supposed to drop this fall, but we are kind of like touching up some things. They want to make sure that it's perfect and just as realistic as it can be. So it'll probably be out later in the year, but it'll definitely be out before the new year. And so that's so exciting. I can't wait to see it. They're going to send me one. So I'm going to have like
Oh my gosh,
this
that's so
five
cool.
nine sex doll of myself living in my house. So I'll have to
That's
come up with
unreal.
some content with that.
For sure, yeah. It's gonna be such a good opportunity to like
Yeah,
shoot with yourself.
I know. Oh my God. But
Wow, that's so
yes,
exciting. And just in time
yeah,
for Christmas.
I know, right? You can go buy yourself a Violet Voss sex doll. So, yeah, and then just another exciting project I have. Again, I'm not gonna like name drop, but a very like famous photographer for a famous magazine is flying here from New York to shoot me with another model. So hopefully put me on two of their covers early next year. So I'm super excited about that.
Oh my gosh, Violet, you have so many things under your belt right now. Like, this is such an exciting time of the year for you.
I know. So
Congratulations.
busy. Yeah, fall is just one of the busiest times of year for me. So I have no complaints about it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, very, very rewarding and very deserving of like, all of your success and I mean, it's so, again, very inspiring, as I mentioned earlier. And hopefully this episode will inspire others and also to work smart, like more smartly in this business. Cause, that is such a key part of being successful is also like protecting yourself and also like looking at the long term and stuff too. Cause sometimes in this industry, especially when you're kind of brand new, you're just kind of looking at like what's in front of you.
Mhm.
But the way you've described everything, I think it's really important to have that kind of like foresight to be like, okay, this can actually be like a long term thing, which is what you were saying in the beginning of your story. So incredible, just incredible. But before I let you go, Violet, where can we all find you?
Of course. So you can follow me on, I guess it's called X and not Twitter now, right?
Yes.
You can follow me in my main account there at I Need Violet. My Instagram is Violet Voss XO. And my loyal fans, which is my only fan site and really the only place that I interact with any type of fans, is at I Need Violet, or you could go to violetsvip.com and it'll link you there. But yeah, if any other creators wanted to connect with me on social media and had any other questions, I'm happy if you want to contact me and ask away.
Super great. I mean, I loved this whole conversation. It's so much fun getting to know you and just like thank you for sharing all of your hot tips and tricks as well for all of us who are thriving in the industry and
Or
also yeah, for those who are like wanting to get into this space as well. So I'm sure there are going to be so many nuggets that people are taking notes on for this episode.
hopefully, yeah.
I think so. And for everyone else listening at home, if you want to get in touch with myself, you can. I'm most active on X, so you can find me at Stripped by Sia. Instagram, Stripped by Sia podcast, because as you know, my original one got taken down ages ago. So that is where you can find me on there. If you, again, want to or are interested in financially supporting the show, it's patreon.com/stripped by Sia. And if you are wanting to come onto the show, you're more than welcome to pitch me. You could go check my website out. It's strippedbysia.com, and you can click on the contact link there. A form should pop up. Tell me your name, tell me what you want to talk about, give me all the talking points. I want to hear about you. So I want to be able to develop an episode together and collaborate on that. So pitch away. I've been getting a lot of submissions, so that's been really cool and fun to read up upon. And I guess, listeners, if you also want to help out the show, you can rate 5 stars on Spotify and Apple. You can also write a nice little review, engage with some of the questions I have on there. All of that stuff helps with visibility for the show and discoverability. So if you find this resource helpful, send it away, share it with your friends, do all your work, share, because knowledge is power, and I believe it being free and accessible is important in my mission. So that being said, Violet, it was so lovely to have you onto the show today. Thank you so much for coming on and chatting with me today.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Until next time, we want you to come back with your giant sex doll.
Yeah. Oh my God, that'd be nice.
Thank you so much, Violet. It was great chatting with you.
Of course. See you next time.
You're listening to Stripped by Sia, hosted, produced, and edited by Steph Sia. Music by Ted D. Graphic design by Maria Bellandarama, and photography by Ian Dabrin.